Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Open Forum today on Catholic Answers Live. It is Tuesday. That means Open Forum. Open Forum means if you have a question about the Catholic faith, if you have a question about why we Catholics do and believe what we do and believe, those questions are welcome. Or maybe you have a more general question having to do with morals or philosophy or religion. Those are welcome as well. You don't have to be Catholic to call 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is internationally known author and speaker Jimmy Akin. Jimmy's the senior apologist here at Catholic Answers. He has more than 20 years of experience answering questions just like we're going to get to today. Jimmy, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I am very well, and I have a question to start with for you.
Okay.
If I have to give a Jimmy Akin book, actually that didn't come out right, but if I have the opportunity.
If someone is, holding you at gunpoint and forcing you to give a Jimmy Akin book.
For Christmas. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. What's the best of the Christmas books?
Well, in terms of the book, one of the books I'm most proud of, it's A Daily Defense, because it just covers so many things in such a user-friendly way that I would recommend that as a gift-giving book in all kinds of circumstances.
Yeah, because really anything you want to know pretty much is
just
in
about.
Yeah. I mean, 366. I mean, it's 365 plus 1, but I can do that math.
Yeah.
Different questions and answers.
What have you done with the real Cy Kelley?
I know. It's shocking that I can do that, though. If I can add 1 to any number.
Uh-huh.
I feel like
What's Google plus 1?
Google 1.
If you want to call it that, okay.
I believe that's Google 1. Yes. Did you ever do that thing when you were a kid, infinity? How would it be like I block you infinity or something like that?
Oh,
the other person would say
that kind of thing. Yeah.
I block you infinity plus 1.
Uh-huh.
That always defeated it. And so, what is that? Infinity 1?
I think that's being juvenile.
Well, when I was a child, I was juvenile a lot.
Uh-huh.
We've been going around.
So was the Roman historian.
Juvenile.
Juvenile.
Yeah. You say juvenile. I guess I didn't. I guess I always
say juvenile. I say juvenile. Let's call the whole thing
potato, Caribbean. Speaking of Caribbean, yesterday several folks from Puerto Rico said hello to us.
Oh, awesome.
And we got to say hi to them on the air because we asked for people from South America.
We're doing our World Hello Tour right now.
But the people in Puerto Rico were like, can you just count us with South America? And then one guy from Guatemala. So we threw him, and then somebody from Brazil. But today is Australia and Oceania.
Okay.
So anybody who says hello on Facebook, I'll try to get to YouTube as well, but I'm less good at YouTube. But we'd love to say hello to folks from Australia or Oceania. And
let me know when we finish the tour because I'll do the Animaniacs Nations of the World song.
Oh yes, yeah. Right. So Karen says good morning from Australia already.
Oh, awesome!
So thanks, Australia.
Good day.
For joining us. Again, 888-318-7884 is the number. Open Forum is the topic. If you've got a question that's been nagging you, or maybe a person who's been nagging you with a question you don't have an answer for about the Catholic faith, about religion in general, about morals, today is your day. 888-318-7884. Already lots of calls, Jimmy. Shall we take a call before we go to the break? Okay, Anonymous in San Jose, California, watching on YouTube. Hello, Anonymous. Your question for Jimmy Akin.
Hi there. How are you?
We're good, thanks.
Hello?
Okay. We can hear you.
I have a quick question. So I'm a professional makeup artist that works both in the bridal and small film industry in Northern California.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also born and raised Catholic. And I wanted a specific, definitive teaching on the use of cosmetics. I mean, I've looked all over the internet about what the Catholic teachings are, but when does it cross the line of vanity, and how much are we allowed to wear, as well as are women supposed to be wearing dresses? The reason why I ask this is because I've looked into some of what the claims of what the Virgin Mary has told the children in Garabandal, Spain, and how she mentioned that we must wear dresses and stuff, or even at her apparition in Brazil, which was approved by the Catholic Church. So just kind of like, what are women allowed to wear freely without it being sinful?
Okay. First thing I'd say is for people who may not be aware, the reported apparition in Garabandal, Spain has not been approved by the church, even though it's been around. I mean, it occurred a number of decades ago, and so it's not like there hasn't been a chance to investigate it and evaluate it, but it has not been approved. So I wouldn't place credence in it. I'm not sure exactly what other apparition you're mentioning, but in general, apparitions are not things that the church endorses in terms of this is church teaching. The church recognizes that God sometimes gives private revelations to people to help them live out their lives better, but those revelations, even when they're genuine, are not universally binding. They are something that is meant to help people in particular situations, but they don't have a universal significance, which is why they're not part of what's called public revelation, like what we find in the Bible, which is of universal significance, at least in principle. Even then, we have to distinguish between, does this Bible verse apply to our time or to another time? And the same thing would be even more true of matters in merely private revelations. So those aren't the place you want to look to understand the church's teaching. Those are pastoral applications for particular settings, even when they're approved. In terms of the church's view of makeup, there's no hard and fast line. There's no way to quantify when makeup becomes vanity, and it's certainly not an amount of makeup, because people's situations differ so widely. I mean, you could have a person, and this would apply more perhaps, say, to plastic surgery than to makeup, but the same thing applies in principle to makeup. People are coming from different starting points, and some people, for example, may have a disfigurement that they might want to use plastic surgery to address to help them just look normal, whereas a person who already looks normal or is even attractive, for them to use plastic surgery, it could, I'm not saying would, but it could cross the line into vanity. Ultimately, vanity is really an attitude of the heart. It's not an external thing. And so no certain amount of either plastic surgery or makeup is going to count as vanity, or personal grooming in the case of men. It can be vain, but it's not necessarily vain. And really what you have to do is not look at the external behavior, but look at the heart and say, what's going on here? Is this person's motive, or really is my motive good? Because we don't need to be judging the hearts of others. That's something that is between them and God, and as both the Bible and the Catechism indicate, we ought to put a favorable construction on others' attitudes and behaviors. And so in the main, we should mind our own business and not be thinking ill of other people and judging them as, oh, this person must be vain or something like that. That's not a helpful attitude to take towards another person in the vast majority of situations. In terms of clothing, the church does not have a teaching regarding specific types of clothing that must be worn by the sexes. What clothing is considered appropriate varies widely from one culture to another. In some cultures, dresses or skirts are traditional garb for women, and it's fine if you want to wear them. In our culture, both dresses and skirts are considered traditional for women, but these days so are pants. And there's no reason that you can't wear pants if you're a woman in America. In other cultures, they have very different dress. In India, for example, women traditionally wear saris, which are those kind of long wrapped cloths that aren't either quite a dress, and they're certainly not a skirt. And like I said, this varies based on what gender you are in, what cultural setting you're in. In Scotland, it's traditional for men to wear kilts, which is a type of skirt. So it's not like there's one form of dress that's forever valid for a given gender. It's something that the church does not have a teaching on, and that it leaves up to the local cultures.
Anonymous, I got to say thank you because we have got to go to a quick break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with Jimmy Akin on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
This is Bishop Robert Baer, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale, with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code WINTER at checkout. With great new resources on Scripture, church history, the saints, Bible prophecy, and so much more. There's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to the shop at Catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code WINTER at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
The Catholic Answers Minute. I'm Father Vincent Serpa. In Luke 1, while the priest Zechariah entered the sanctuary to burn incense, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, telling him that his barren wife would bear him a son, who would be filled with the Holy Spirit, and would bring many Israelites to the Lord. He questioned how this could be, since he and his wife were advanced in years. Gabriel replied that he would be unable to speak until the day when such was fulfilled, because he had doubted. When Zechariah emerged from the sanctuary, he was unable to speak, and the people realized that he had seen a vision. Shortly thereafter, his wife Elizabeth conceived in her old age. God had a purpose in not giving them children through all those years. How many days had they wondered why their prayers seemed to not have been heard? God always has a plan. It is for us to acknowledge His sovereignty by trusting Him, and thereby showing our love for Him. I'm Father Vincent Serpa for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
A very blessed Advent to you. Thanks so much for joining us today on Catholic Answers Live. Open Forum meaning anything you'd like to know about the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church is welcome. We'd love to take your question. You don't have to be Catholic to call. Anybody can call. 888-318-7884. As a matter of fact, if you're not Catholic and you're listening, we really like it when non-Catholics call. If there's something that you're curious about or something you've heard about the Catholic Church, we would love to address your question. Again, 888-318-7884. And if you happen to be in Australia or Micronesia or Samoa, or I'd even throw Indonesia in there.
Japan,
yeah, okay, Oceania, and Australia.
Airstrip 1.
Where's Airstrip 1? I never heard of that.
Oh, read 1984.
Oh,
it's an island in the ocean somewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Just say hi on Facebook and let us know what country you're in, and we'd really like to say hi back to you on the air. We go now to Tim in Rochester, New York, listening to 92.9 FM. Your question for Jimmy Akin, Tim.
Hi. Yes, I came into the church in 2012 as a convert from the Methodist Church in which I was raised, and I was also baptized and confirmed before my RCIA. So my question is, when I came into the church on Easter Vigil, I received all the other sacraments, my First Communion and my reconciliation. But I noticed that a lot of my friends who were...
Tim, let me ask you one quick thing. I assume you were also confirmed when you came into the church. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
There's a lot of my Catholic friends who were raised Catholic. When they were confirmed, they were given the option to choose a patron saint, and the bishop came and anoints them and gives them, calls them their patron saint name. And I was wondering, as somebody who never had the opportunity to do this, obviously Methodists don't honor saints the same way we as Catholics do. If there, is a way that I can have that, officially done through the church, or is it more or less now that that sacrament has already been conferred upon me, if that's something, if I just choose a saint informally and try to, that I respect and try to emulate their lives and the way they live towards Christ.
Yeah, so the custom of having a patron saint and using a patron saint name, either in conjunction with baptism or in conjunction with confirmation, is purely a matter of custom. It is not a matter of law, and so it's something that you're perfectly free to do. People, in fact, commonly have multiple patron saints, or can anyway, whether they're aware of it or not, because many saints are patrons of particular locations, like here in the United States. Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patron of the United States of America, or the Americas, I should say. But then also locations have saints, like St. Ambrose is the patron of Milan, Italy, and St. Christopher is the patron saint of travelers. So anytime you're traveling, St. Christopher is a patron. So it's not like everybody has a certain fixed patron with no variability to it. If you find or are aware of a particular saint who you'd like to have as a patron and who you'd like to pray for you and who you'd like to learn about and emulate his virtues, that's entirely up to you. So feel free to pick one or more than one. That's what I did when I got confirmed.
How's that for you,
All right,
Tim?
thank you so much.
Very good.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that call. Tim, we go now to Lewis in Brooklyn, New York, listening on the Catholic Answers app. Lewis, you are on with Jimmy Akin.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I wanted to know, I had heard a priest that I was listening to on YouTube that I've been listening to for a while, but he said something that I found odd. He said that that evolution and the idea of evolution and the Big Bang can't really be held by Catholics because it goes against the documents that was set forth in the Fourth Lateran Council.
Okay. Did he quote something from the Fourth Lateran Council to support that?
Nope. I think
heard that claim before,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
Okay.
If you heard that claim, if not, like, how do I answer that?
Okay. I would say this. Now, in order to engage in a specific way what he said, I'd have to know who this is and know what he said exactly. I'm not aware of anything in the Fourth Lateran Council that would even be an issue here. But if he has some particular passage from the Fourth Lateran Council, it's something I could certainly take a look at. But barring that, I would say this. He's wrong and his judgment is untrustworthy, and you should not be listening to this guy, because the church has had a long time to think about both the Big Bang Theory and the doctrine of evolution, and after it's mature, and these ideas were not even around when the Fourth Lateran Council met. I mean, that was hundreds of years ago, and so these ideas were not around, and they certainly didn't engage them directly and were not attempting to comment on them. So what this guy is doing is trying to read vapors arising from things that the council may have said that he, in his view, thinks somehow contradict these modern scientific proposals. However, his judgment and his personal opinion are not binding on Catholics here. What is the reflection that has been done by the contemporary magisterium of the Church. And when you look at that, you see that, provided certain limits are respected, the Church has discerned that neither the Big Bang Theory nor the theory of evolution is fundamentally contrary to the sources of faith. And so it is permissible for Catholics to believe in at least certain understandings of the Big Bang Theory and of evolution. One of the key requirements being that we understand that God is behind both of them. If you think the scientific evidence supports those views, fine, but God is ultimately in control. In terms, and there are a few other things that we won't go into, but this is something that if it really were contrary to something that the Fourth Lateran Council had said, if it was fundamentally irreconcilable with something that the Church had infallibly defined in the past, people would have noticed. You know, the Church has a wealth of theologians, and God guides the magisterium to ensure that even though it may take something of a process for the magisterium to arrive at a mature judgment on a matter, nevertheless, God is in charge of guiding that process. And you would not have had individuals like Blessed Pius XII speaking very highly of the Big Bang Theory back in the 1950s, or Saint John Paul II endorsing certain views of evolution in the 1990s. And they weren't alone. It wasn't like these two guys were rogues. The rest of the magisterium was on board with this. And so to have one priest somewhere whose personal opinion is that something Fourth Lateran said that wasn't even about evolution or the Big Bang Theory somehow precludes them for all Catholics is just an irresponsible judgment that he should not be airing in public, and people should not be listening to him, whoever he may be.
Clear enough, Louis?
No, it definitely was. I appreciate that answer. Can I just ask one quick follow-up really
Sure.
quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the reason why that struck me the most is because I actually, I believe in evolution. I believe in the science on it, and I never thought it contradicted anything in my Catholic faith. But I do know I don't know how to articulate it in a sense to myself or to anybody else. Like, how can I reconcile the two? Because I know some people think it's not reconcilable. Is there any sources that you know of that anything I could read or anything that I could make that more clearer to myself?
How you want to reconcile evolution with what?
So
the text of Genesis?
Because
okay.
It's not the first time I heard this claim. So not this is the first time I heard it from a Catholic, but I've heard this claim before. So I just wanted to know if there's anything I could read to help my understanding on that.
Yeah, there have been a variety of works that have addressed this. And I've done some writing about it myself, but it's not all published. In terms of what to read about it, I would suggest starting with a book. I would suggest starting by Googling framework interpretation Genesis. The framework interpretation is one that is not. The Catechism of the Catholic Church seems to allude to it without endorsing all of its details, but basically. What the framework interpretation is that Genesis 1, with the 6 days of creation, distributes the work of the Creator symbolically over the period of a 7-day Hebrew week. And it's understood from various clues in the text, like the fact the sun isn't created until the 4th day, but the day-night cycle is created on day 1. Well, the ancients knew that the sun is responsible for whether it's day or night. They knew that, just like we do. And so that's seen as a cue to the reader to understand that what you're reading is a symbolic narrative rather than a chronological narrative. And what you see in these passages is God creates on the first 3 days these different realms, day, night, sky, sea, and then dry land. And then on the second 3 days, he goes back over them and populates them with the sun, the moon, and the stars in the day and the night, then the birds and the fish in the sky and the sea, and finally the land animals and man on the earth. And so all of this is a very highly structured narrative that suggests it's symbolic to the audience, particularly the creation of the sun on the 4th day, and therefore it's not meant to give us chronological information. And something similar is true when we move into later chapters of Genesis, at least the early ones, and it's understood that when God creates Adam's body from the dust of the ground, that doesn't mean he literally did it with hands that he doesn't have. He's not making a statue and breathing life into it literally. But it's an affirmation that man is part of the material order and that God created man out of the material order and then endowed him with the spirit. So whether or not there are prior biological life forms that are part of that is another matter. Also, John Paul II in 1996 gave an address to the Pontifical Academy of Science. And if you Google John Paul II, Evolution, Pontifical Academy, it'll come up and you can read the Pope's words for yourself.
Louis, thank you very, very much for that call. It is open forum, and any call with a question about the Catholic faith is welcome. And you don't have to be Catholic to call. 888-318-7884. We'll be right back.
Christmas weekend, EWTN and Anathan Theater present a live radio drama adapted from the popular movie It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm in trouble, Mr. Potter. I've got to raise $8,000 immediately.
Oh, so that's what the reporters want to talk to you about?
The reporters?
Yes. There's a man over there from the DA's office, too.
Please help me, Mr. Potter. Help me, please, won't you?
Merry Christmas, George Bailey. Saturday night at 5 Eastern and Sunday night at 7 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Did the Catholic Church add books to the Bible? Or did Protestants remove 7 books from the Old Testament? Why Catholic Bibles Are Bigger takes you on a fact-filled tour through the history of the Bible, revealing the whole story behind the lost books of the Protestant Old Testament. With the latest information and discourse on crucial issues, Why Catholic Bibles Are Bigger is a book that belongs in the library of every serious student of Scripture. And as a special bonus, if you order online, we'll add an ebook copy of 15 Myths, Mistakes, and Misrepresentations about the Deuterocanon to your order absolutely free. Get your free ebook today. Order your copy of Why Catholic Bibles Are Bigger by logging on to our online shop at shop.catholic.com. Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back and blessed Advent to you. We have an open forum today, 2 hours of open forum. So if you're on the line, keep waiting. If you haven't got on the line, we still got time. You can get your call in, 888-318-7884. We welcome any call on any aspect of the life, faith, the history of Catholic Church. I want to say hi to Hugh in Australia, and Cleofa in New Zealand, and Marte in Malaysia, and Brian in Middle-earth. Is Middle-earth a Pacific Rim country? Or?
I always understood Middle-earth as being a Romana clef for Europe.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
However, for our friend in Malaysia, and all of our friends in Malaysia and Indonesia, apa kabar?
Yeah, and from me too, as well. I have, what did we just say?
Oh, we asked if it's a greeting.
Oh, okay.
And it literally means like doing good. And the standard reply is kabar baik, which means doing good.
Oh,
or are you good and doing good?
Ah, very good. All right.
Or even more informally, baik.
I love that you didn't just give it to me, but you also gave me the informal. I'll just throw the informal in there. 888-318-7884 is our number. Also, I want to remind you that you can have the free ebook, The Case for Christmas, Answers to Attacks on Christmas, just by going to our website, Catholic.com. Click on the banner. You get the free ebook. It's as easy as that. Again, 888-31-TRUTH, the number. And waiting on the line is Eric in Chicago, Illinois, listening on the EWTN app. Eric, you are on with Jimmy Akin. Your question, please.
All right. So I was talking to a Protestant friend of mine about once saved, always saved.
Okay.
And the only thing I could come up with, it was stupid, but it was a third of the angels fell because they had, free will, and they chose to go, and they were in heaven. So, even if you get to heaven, I told them, you can still fall because you still have free will. My wife accused me of spreading heresies. And I want to know what's wrong with my argument.
Okay. I don't know that I would classify it as heresy. I'd have to think about whether it meets the formal definition of heresy. But, and since you did it without intending to, you certainly didn't commit the canonical crime of heresy. But I would say that your wife is right that that's not the Church's view of things, that we will be secure in our salvation in heaven, and that the angels who did not fall are also secure in heaven. The idea is that God gives both us and the angels a choice. And once we make that choice, it becomes definitive. For the angels, it's commonly understood that this happened in the first moment of their existence, that they were given a choice to choose for or against God. Some chose against God, some chose for God, but once that happened, it became definitive for them. So the evil angels continue in evil, the good angels continue in good. For humans, it's a little different. We're a different kind of being than the angels are, and we have lifetimes here on this earth before we die, and then we'll eventually be resurrected. And it's understood that our time of choice, our time of decision, is stretched out over the course of our lives. So we can go back and forth between good and evil over the course of our lives, but when we die, that choice becomes definitive. And so if you have chosen to reject God's goodness by the end of your life, and that's how you die, then, like the evil angels, you'll be confirmed in evil. On the other hand, if you accept God's grace and friendship, then you'll be confirmed in good, just like the good angels. And so you won't be going back and forth in the afterlife. Because the angels who fell did so, according to the common Catholic understanding, at the beginning of their existence and not after the choice became definitive, I would say that that it's not the best argument for dealing with someone who believes in once saved, always saved, because we're talking because the angels don't always have the capacity to fall from grace. The ones who chose good remain in good, just like we will afterwards. So I would appeal to different texts in the Bible to support the possibility of losing salvation in this life. We can agree once saved, always saved, if by that you're referring to the next life, where if you're saved when you die, you're going to stay saved for all eternity. That's true, but that's not what they mean. They mean in this life you can't lose your salvation. And there are a wide variety of biblical texts that indicate the possibility of losing salvation. The very phrase, fallen from grace, comes from St. Paul in his letter to the Galatians. He warns them that if they accept circumcision, then they've fallen from grace. He also, in 1 Corinthians 11, talks to the Corinthians about how it's possible they could have believed in vain if they don't maintain the Christian faith. And Jesus himself, in John 15, talks to the disciples and says, if you remain in me, you'll remain in my Father's love, but if you don't, then you'll be removed and like branches from a grapevine, and the destiny of such branches is to be burned in the fire. So there are three places you might want to look at. If you go to my personal website, jimmyakin.com, and look in the file library there, I have a debate, my notes from a debate on the loss of salvation, and I cover a lot of different verses that deal with this. So you might just type in loss of salvation, Jimmy Akin, and see what comes up.
Thank you very, very much for that call, Eric. We go now to Rick in Eagle, Nebraska, listening on 88.3 FM. Rick, your question for Jimmy Akin.
How you doing, sir?
Just fine.
I have a two-part question. When I first got introduced to the Catholic ways, it was in a sweat lodge by like a medicine woman.
Okay.
And they were singing Native American songs, and at the same time she was having a rosary going on and all kinds of stuff that I've never heard of before.
Okay.
Number one, would that be considered wrong to you guys?
I'd have to know more about it. Obviously, anytime you have what looks like it might be a blending of two different religions, that's something known as technically as syncretism, then that's a problem because we don't want the Christian faith blended with non-Christian ideas. On the other hand, we shouldn't be we shouldn't just automatically assume that anything that incorporates cultural forms from different cultures automatically corrupts the Christian faith. That's not the case. People in different parts of the world have always expressed their Christian faith in terms of cultural forms that are familiar to them, whether it's music or decoration or art or whatever it may be. Certainly language. I mean, language is one of the biggest, maybe the biggest aspect of culture, and people express their Christian faith in different languages all over the world. So they can certainly express it in different cultural forms without it being a problem. That process of taking the Christian faith and expressing it through particular cultural forms is a process known as enculturation. And it's generally the responsibility of the local bishops to make sure that the Christian faith is being enculturated in the local culture in a proper way. And so I haven't heard about a situation like the one you mentioned, and so I have no way of knowing exactly what went on there and evaluating it. But in terms of the principles, if the Christian faith was being adulterated syncretistically, then that is a problem. But if it was merely being enculturated in a particular way, then that's not in principle a problem.
Okay, Rick?
Well, for that certain question, her teaching men, would that be wrong? I mean,
the Church's understanding of the application of the prohibition on women teaching applies to at Mass as the homilist. It's not something that applies in other settings, and we can even see that from the New Testament itself, where we have in the book of Acts, there's a passage where Apollos, an early Christian evangelist at an early stage of his development as an evangelist, didn't know everything he needed to know about Jesus. He knew some, but not enough. And so a couple of Jews from Rome named Priscilla and her husband Aquila took him aside privately to give him private instruction. And the fact that Priscilla is mentioned first, and not just in this passage, but in other passages as well, that's very unusual. It's unusual to have the wife mentioned at all, much less mentioning her first, and that suggests she's the dominant personality in these situations. And so the fact that Priscilla participated, apparently as the dominant figure, in helping provide Apollos, an evangelist, with additional instruction about Jesus shows that women can indeed teach things. I mean, anybody who's got something worth learning is worth listening to.
Rick, thanks very, very much for that call. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Jimmy Akin on Open Forum Day here at Catholic Answers right after this.
Your questions, Catholic Answers, live.
Tim Staples, Trent Horn, Cy Kellett, Chris Check, Carlo Broussard. Our on-fire lineup of speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker for your event, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their Catholic values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
At Christmas time, we all want to be the one to give that special gift that keeps on giving. That's why we've made subscriptions to Catholic Answers magazine available at a very special price through the end of the year. And now, when you purchase a subscription, you get a subscription to the digital edition added to your order for free. That's right, $10 off one-year subscriptions and $20 off two-year subscriptions, plus a free digital subscription. With a deal like that, it's the perfect gift for friends, family members, seminarians, your priest, or anyone on your list. When you get right down to it, what other gift has the potential to touch hearts and reap eternal rewards? Log on today to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com and sign up friends and family alike for a gift that is bound to make a difference in their lives and the lives of those they meet. Share the faith. Defend the faith. Catholic Answers Magazine from Catholic Answers, the most trusted name in Catholic apologetics.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest this hour, Jimmy Akin, and our topic, whatever is on your mind.
Speaking of which, our previous caller had, I believe, based on what the call screener said, an additional little aspect to his question, which was actually a different question, but we weren't able to get to it before the break. He wanted to know, did Jesus have other brothers through Mary? And the answer is no. It's a subject we've addressed many times here on the show. And what I would recommend, since we weren't able to keep him on the line through the break, is that he just go to Catholic.com and type in Jesus Brothers, and he'll get a lot of information on exactly that subject.
Very good. Very good. Let's go now to Lucille in El Paso, Texas, listening on KHRO 1150 AM. Lucille, your question for Jimmy Akin.
Hello, this is Lucille.
Hi, yes. Lucille, your question.
I have a friend, a very close one, who's a practicing Catholic,
okay,
who says that she finds it very hard to believe that Jesus suffered.
Okay.
How can one deal with that? How can one offer a rebuttal or try to understand where she's coming from?
Yeah, so I would say a couple things. The inclination she has, because it sounds like she understands that Jesus is God, and that's true. And there have been people down through history who have said, well, Jesus is God. God can't be hurt, so Jesus couldn't suffer. And on the surface, if you just from those facts, that sounds reasonable. But there are additional facts, like Jesus took on a human nature. And so via his human nature, he could suffer. In the 2nd century, there were a group of people known as Docetists who believed that Jesus was God, but they didn't think he took on a human nature. They didn't think he was really a man. And so they said he didn't suffer on the cross, that he just appeared to suffer. And that's where they got their name. Docetism comes from a Greek word that means to seem or to appear, that Jesus just appeared to be a man. He just appeared to suffer. And that's actually a heresy, that view. It's fundamentally contrary to the Christian faith. And so it might help, or it might not help your friend to know that, there have been people who said things like this, but it was judged to be heresy. And there's a very good reason for that, because if you look in the New Testament itself talks about Jesus' suffering. And in fact, Jesus himself talks about his own suffering. If you look, for example, in Luke chapter 24, there are a number of passages where Jesus talks about how his sufferings were to transpire. In Luke 24, verses 25 and 26, he's talking on the road to Emmaus with Clopas and his associate, and he says to them, "O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all the prophets have spoken, was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter into his glory?" So Jesus himself is saying, based on the message of the prophets, it was necessary that the Christ, he himself, suffer. Later on in Luke 24:46, he says, "Thus it is written that the Christ would suffer and rise again from the dead the 3rd day." So those are just two examples. There are many others in the New Testament that indicate Jesus suffered. Perhaps the key to helping your friend understand that conceptually, from those verses, she should be able to understand Jesus did suffer. The key to helping her understand that conceptually is realizing that Jesus is not only God, he is God, and he took on a human nature. And since he's God, he's omnipotent. He can do whatever he chooses. And if he chose to make his human body invulnerable like Superman, well, then he wouldn't have suffered. But he has the choice, and he chose to leave his human form vulnerable so that it could suffer. It could get tired. It could get hungry. It could get crucified. And that was the choice he made for his humanity in this earthly life. He chose to leave it vulnerable, and that is the key that helps square the two concepts.
I see. Okay. Well, maybe that'll help.
I hope so.
You never know, Lucille. Maybe it will. Lucille, thanks so much for that call. 888-318-7884. We're this hour and next hour saying hi to folks in Australia or anywhere out there in the Pacific Oceanic region. If you're there, say hello on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to say hello on the air. Flaw from Brisbane, Australia. Thanks so much for checking in and saying hi. Christopher from Sarawak, Malaysia. Does that sound right? Sarawak?
Yeah.
Did I said that right?
Sarawak.
Sarawak. Oh, okay. Very good. 888-318-7884, the number. We go now to Mark in Coldwater, Michigan, listening on 89.7 FM. Mark, you're on with Jimmy Akin.
Hey, guys. I'm a recent convert to the church. My wife and I were Protestant and studied for several years and then made the change.
Uh-huh.
And in the past few months, I've been going.
Ooh, hey, cut out there, Mark. Could you repeat that?
Mark, we're just having a little trouble. I'm going to put you on hold and see if you can work with Nick to get that line to work a little better while we check in with Rachel. We're not getting rid of you. Hang on just a quick sec. We'll get back to you. Rachel in Lubbock, Texas, listening on 100.2.7 FM. Your question for Jimmy Akin. Rachel? No, nobody. I don't. Maybe it's our phone. I don't know. Let's try. Oh well, Juan's in Guadalajara, Mexico, listening on Catholic.com. The phones in Guadalajara work well, right? Juan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Your question for Jimmy.
Hello, Jimmy. Thanks for taking my call. My question is in regards with a practice I've been engaging myself with for the past probably 6 months.
Juan, if you could please speak directly into the phone.
Sorry?
Please speak directly into the phone. It will make it easier to hear you.
My question is in regards with a practice I have been doing for the past 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I have been injured in my knees for the last 3-4 years.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I've been trying to seek healing,
Mm-hmm.
and I found this practice of Qigong, which I learned like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based on the traditional Chinese method, traditional Chinese medicine, which it talks about the Qi.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to make sure it was in line with my Catholic faith.
So one of the things that that scientists have discovered is that so-called traditional medicines and medical practices can have medical therapeutic benefit at times. An example of that is aspirin. Aspirin is based on willow bark, and the use of willow bark as a pain reliever in traditional medicine is something that did have some basis, and later, you know, the compounds in willow bark that make that possible were sort of replicated in aspirin, and now it's become the most popular pain reliever in the world. So there can be value in traditional therapeutic practices, but those practices also frequently are wrapped up in superstition. And there can also be harmful aspects, either physically harmful or spiritually harmful. And the belief in some Asian areas in a life force known as Qi or Qi that can be somehow manipulated to bring about healing is not supported either by science or by the Christian faith. And so I would say that element is superstition. But if the procedure you're using otherwise is something you find helpful, I would say, well, fine. It's helping me out. It's giving me some pain relief. It's helping me heal this, or seems to be. But I would just not attribute it to manipulating some life force. For example, to give a parallel, Another discipline that is often thought to manipulate a life force is acupuncture. The idea is you put, needles in certain places in a person's body, and in the traditional understanding, it manipulates energy moving around in their body somehow. Well, we don't have evidence for this kind of energy, but what we do, or at least it's popularly believed, I haven't investigated this personally, but it's popularly believed by many people that they do get a benefit from acupuncture. Well, in those cases, it would be possible to say, okay, it's not moving energy around, but it's doing something that people find helpful, whether that's placebo effect or whether it's something like relieving pressure points, and there's some kind of hormonal or muscular tension or that gets adjusted by sticking needles in certain locations. So there may be some therapeutic value there. It just may be the interpretation of how it works that's the problem. So I would say if you're getting benefit from a particular form of therapy, then it's in principle okay to keep going with it. Just don't give it a superstitious interpretation.
Thank you very, very much. I'm going to keep moving just because we have lots of folks waiting on, but thank you. We'll go back to Mark and see if we can get him. Mark in Coldwater, Michigan, can you hear us and can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. What's your question?
Great. Thank you. I'm a recent convert to the church. My wife and I were raised Protestant and last year made the change. And
welcome home.
Well, thank you, but you may be sad to hear I've been really struggling with doubt these past few months, and I'm really just looking for some direction or advice. It's all kind of breaking down for me.
Okay. Let me, because we only have a few moments before the end of the hour, what are you having doubts about, or what's the source of the doubts?
The source of the doubt is from atheist materials like Harris and the Four Horsemen Guide, and smart friends that I have. So it's really questions about whether Christianity as a whole is true. If it is, I'm convinced that Catholicism is the way to go. But just looking for direction as to materials I could read or your advice.
Okay. I would have a piece of advice and also some materials to recommend. The first thing is it's understandable when people have experienced a major life transition that they can experience some doubts about, have I done the right thing? Did I go too far? Did I not go far enough? It's an unsettling thing, and so it can cause people to become unsettled and to have some doubts. That's not unusual. When you're in that period, it can be advisable to say, I've made this choice. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm not going to expose myself to a lot of stuff that I would find upsetting at this time. I'm not really, I've just gone through this big shift. Is that really the time to take on another potential big shift? It can be entirely reasonable to say, my wife and I made this shift and I'm just going to give it some time and put aside these materials that have been upsetting me and not talk to my friends about these subjects that have been upsetting, and I'm just going to give this a shot for now and see how it goes. In addition, I would recommend some resources. If you go to Catholic.com, type in the store, shop.catholic.com, type in atheism. You'll get quite a number of different resources there. We also have free resources on it at Catholic.com. I'd particularly recommend some books that we've published by our staff apologist, Trent Horn. I'd also recommend my book, A Daily Defense. So I hope that helps you out, as I'm sure you can hear the music. We're out of time, but thank you so much for calling and calling again.
Thanks, Mark. Sorry we had a little trouble with the sound there, but you are always welcome to call. Again, the number 888-318-7884. Open Forum continues next hour with Jim Blackburn taking over the duties from Jimmy Akin. Jimmy, thanks so much for another great hour.
My pleasure.
And I hope we'll get to say hi to more folks in Australia and Oceania next hour. If you're there, if you're out there in the Pacific Ocean listening, give us a nod on Facebook.
And hi to all of our friends in Guam who I know are there.
Come on, say hello. We'll see you in a minute.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, open forum. This hour, Jim Blackburn is our guest. Jim is a Catholic apologist, author, and speaker. He's got a master's degree in theology from John Paul the Great Catholic University, very close to us here. He's the author of several books, including 101 Quick Questions with Catholic Answers, Marriage, Divorce, and Annulment. He's also the author of 20 Answers, Scripture and Tradition, 20 Answers, The Papacy, and 20 Answers, Divorce and Remarriage. He's been around at Catholic Answers in one capacity or another for about 10 years. Is that right? Or maybe longer?
Yeah, well, I was actually at Catholic Answers, employed at Catholic Answers for over 9 years, up until 2013, I think.
Oh, so
and then for the last 4 years, I've been finished up my master's degree, and I've just been kind of freelance. I do still do writing for Catholic Answers. I do still do the radio program. I'm still on the Speakers Bureau. I still do all that with Catholic Answers, but the day-to-day, coming in the office and all that, I live too far away, and it just it came a time that had to end. So
yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of my 20 Answers booklets. The most recent one that just came out a couple months ago is 20 Answers on homosexuality, and so I want to mention that one too, because I think that's just one of the biggest topics out there today, and I really hit the main challenges, all the main challenges that Catholics face about homosexuality, same-sex marriage, and explain it from a Catholic perspective, from a Christian perspective.
I had forgotten that one just came out this year.
Just a couple months ago.
Yeah, just
yes,
a couple
sir.
months ago. Okay, so you're like the 20 Answers man. You're up to 80 answers now. 80 answers in the 20 Answers thing. You get
I enjoy it. I think it's a great series, and I think that parishes use them, ministries at parishes use them. They are just a great tool for really any type of ministry, any type of religious group that's Christian, and especially that's Catholic. So I am really a proponent of getting as many of those 20 Answers booklets out there as possible.
Our number, 888-318-7884, and any question you have on the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church, you want to know why we believe what we believe and do what we do, give us a call, 888-318-7884. And Jim, you're willing to talk to Catholics and non-Catholics alike, Christians and non-Christians. Anybody can call, right?
Anybody. I love talking to everybody, so anyone can call.
Even Canadians?
Even Canadians.
All
yes.
right. Okay. That it really is.
As long as they speak English. I have to speak English.
Oh, you don't speak the French that they speak up there?
I don't.
888-318-7884, the number. Mervyn from Sydney, Australia checked in online and said hello. Do you know why Mervyn said hello, Jim, from Sydney, Australia?
Why did he say hello?
Because we're going around the world saying hello to different parts of the world as we approach Christmas. And today we're on Australia and Oceania. And so people from New Zealand and Australia and Samoa and Micronesia and Tahiti and Indonesia are saying hello. And if they say hi to us and tell us where they are out there, we'll say hi to them on the air. Tomorrow's going to be the Philippines. Jim, you're glad you're not on tomorrow, because when we do the Philippines, you're not going to be able to get a word in edgewise. There's going to be so many people to say hello from. We have a wonderful, wonderful relationship with the Philippines. Lots and lots of support from the Philippines, and we're very grateful for it.
I have a lot of Facebook friends from the Philippines, and in fact, I do a lot of correspondence with them. So I know Catholicism is really alive and well in the Philippines, and people are very serious about it. And regarding the saying hello to people around the world, I would just say my response to that is, Cy, it's a small world after all.
It is a small world after all. It's a world of laughter. It's a world of tears. Okay, enough of that, Blackburn. Have we had enough of your silliness? Let's go to
Sure.
Let's go to calls. I have nightmares about It's a Small World. I had a daughter who was afraid of every other ride at Disneyland. So if we went to Disneyland, my wife took the other kids and had fun, and I went on It's a Small World again and again and again.
It's one of my favorite rides.
It wouldn't be if my daughter was your daughter. You'd be over it by now. Rich in Orlando, Florida, listening on 920 AM. You are on with the ridiculous Jim Blackburn. Your question, please.
Oh, good morning. Good afternoon, I should say.
Yes.
Anyway,
Hi, Rich.
Hi. I've been listening to some New York radio stations over the summer, and I noticed that the Archdiocese of New York City has a commercial encouraging people to go to church, their mosque, or synagogue. And I thought, is that appropriate to use Catholic money to encourage people to go to a mosque or synagogue?
Okay. Well, Rich, I haven't heard the commercials or the advertisements that you're talking about, so I can't speak to what the motive might be for those. What I can do is speculate as to what they're trying to do, and I suspect that the radio station that you're listening to appeals to more than just Catholics, appeals to other Christians, appeals to the Jewish population in New York as well as the Muslim population. And when you have all these religious background, people from them coming together and listening to this programming, I suspect that that they're trying to let people know, hey, we'd like to appeal to everyone, and we would like to encourage everyone to take your faith seriously. Sometimes, and I'm not saying this is a motive behind the commercials, but I can tell you that in my own dealings, sometimes when I try to help someone explore his own faith in more depth and in more detail and get to know it, get to understand it, it opens up a lot of doors to talking to me about my faith and the differences that we have, the commonalities that we share, but also the differences. And in a lot of cases, it opens people up to understanding more about our Catholic faith and what it is. And I think, I can't point to a specific example in my own history, but I suspect that there are people who are eventually led to the Catholic faith by this as well. So just some ideas, Rich. I would say maybe if you would like to really know what their motives are and what the purpose of the commercials is, contact them directly and ask them about it and see what they have to say.
Rich. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich.
You bet.
Appreciate the call. It is open forum today. Let's go to Kyle. I think we can get another call in here before we have to take a break. Kyle in Waukesha, Wisconsin, listening on 88.5 on the EWTN network. Kyle, your question for Jim Blackburn.
Yes, I'm not Catholic, but I have some really good Catholic friends, and I noticed that they pray to saints. And from what I've learned in the Bible, Jesus says that anyone who comes unto the Father except by Him is like trying to enter the sheep pen not by the gate, as if a thief. What is the biblical basis of praying to saints?
Okay. Well, first, maybe I would point out what it means when we say that we pray to the saints, because a lot of people misunderstand that. People, Protestants in particular, or non-Catholic Christians, sometimes think that when Catholics pray to saints, that we're looking at them almost as though they were another god, as though they are people who are saving us, as only Christ saves us. And as you mentioned, that they are intermediaries for us, between us and the Father, whereas Christ is that intermediary. And we as Catholics, we understand that. We understand that Christ is the mediator between man and God, between mankind and the Father. He brings us to them. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't help each other in that same goal, along that same goal. And in particular, it doesn't mean that we can't help each other go to Christ as our primary intermediary to lead us to the Father himself. In fact, as Catholics, we see that as the primary role of Mary. Mary is the saint who, to us, she brought Christ to the world. She brought Jesus into this world. She mediated God to us in a real sense, in a unique way. And we believe that she continues to do that for us in heaven. She continues to bring us closer to her Son, to Christ, who brings us to the Father. So just as you and I might pray for each other, and I might pray for your salvation, you might pray for mine, when we pray to the saints, we're asking them to do that for us as well. We're asking them to pray for us. And if they're in the presence of Christ himself, we're asking for them to take our prayers to him in order to bring us to him and bring us to the Father through him. So they are another source of that. We can look at Scripture. Sometimes Protestants will point out in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5, that St. Paul points out that there's one mediator between man and God. But if we go just a few verses before that, we see that he also says, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all men. He's urging us to do this for each other. And as Catholics, we recognize that doesn't stop when a person dies. When a person dies and goes to heaven, that person can continue to pray for us and continue to do the same thing he was doing on earth, and maybe in a much more spectacular way, being in the presence of Christ himself. So does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. I really appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Call anytime. We're happy you called. 888-318-7884 is our number. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Open Forum with Jim Blackburn right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers. Our success depends on you.
We're rapidly coming to the end of the year. Soon, 2017 will be behind us, and 2018 will begin. At Catholic Answers, we need to prepare for that now. You see, the end of the year is a very important time for us. Like most nonprofits, Catholic Answers depends heavily on the generosity of its donors at the end of the year, just before and after Christmas. That's right, Christmas. That's what we Catholics celebrate, not nebulous, religiously neutral holidays or a non-specific season. Catholic Answers is all about promoting Christ and the Catholic faith. It's what we do day in and day out. This time of year is no exception. In fact, the end of the year is when we have our largest fundraising campaign, which provides the foundation for the work we will do in 2018. Also, the tax year ends just after Christmas, and that gives people an extra reason to be generous at this time. Making a donation now will help Catholic Answers do more good, it will help reduce your tax burden, and it will help keep more money out of the government's wasteful hands. Between Christmas generosity and the end of the tax year, Catholic Answers is really counting on your help right now. To learn how you can help and how you can get your free copy of Trent Horn's new DVD, The Protestant Revolution, just go to Catholic.com and click the End of Year banner, or call us toll-free at 888-291-8000. That's the End of Year banner at Catholic.com, or call toll-free 888-291-8000. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization Online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back. Jim Blackburn, our guest, and a very blessed Advent to you and all of yours. It's getting close now. We are getting closer and closer to Christmas Day, and I'm feeling it. You feeling it, Jim? Have you got any Christmas spirit yet, or are you?
Absolutely. I'm getting excited.
I got it early this year. I don't know why. I can feel it when it comes. I'm like, oh, I'm in the Christmas spirit now, and I got it early this year. So, Nick, are you in the Christmas spirit yet or not? Okay, Nick's in the Christmas spirit. Open Forum means Anybody can call with any question at all about the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church. We go now to Tony in Sioux City, Iowa, listening on 88.1 FM KFHC. Tony, your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just had a question, something that kind of bothered me. I was at I have a friend I used to hang out with a lot in my college days, and now we don't get to see each other as often. So he and I met up at a bar in the city where I live, and at this bar, behind the bar, back kind of by the cash register, there was a tabernacle. And at first I didn't really believe it was because it was so small. I mean, it was maybe 10 inches to 12 inches tall. It was small, but it appeared to really be a tabernacle. So I asked the bartender, is that a tabernacle? And she said, yeah, it is. And she said, I don't know, the owner probably got it from a garage sale or something. That's where he gets a lot of this stuff, just kind of random things that they have in the bar. And I noticed that when she opened it up, and it looked like they keep car keys and wallets in there, just kind of a thing. They're using it to put things in. And I just didn't know. It seemed inappropriate to me, but I didn't know to what extent, or if I should be trying to communicate any kind of message to them or encourage them to do something else with it. I just didn't know what to do.
Well, Tony, I certainly, or Craig, or Tony, I'm sorry. I can understand your initial reaction to that. A tabernacle is a very special holy item, and it's, it houses the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. It's something that's that's really special to us as Catholics. However, the Church does allow articles, things that are used during the Mass, even holy places, to sometimes be converted to what the Code of Canon Law calls profane use. And by profane, I mean secular, non-religious use, non-holy use, something that takes an object that has been blessed and has been set aside for a specific holy purpose, and then converts that so that it's no longer set aside for that. And when that happens, these items can be sold and go on and be used for other things, even just a box to be used to store items in. That is something that can happen. So I hope that if this truly is or was at one point a tabernacle, that it has been officially converted to profane use. Sometimes just the action of no longer using something for its sacred use can automatically mean it will lose its blessing, and it's just automatically is converted to profane use. But I would think with the tabernacle, and certainly with holy places, there is a procedure, and I would hope that procedure has been done to convert these items to profane use, so that then it's happening, with the Church's sanctioning of that. So, Tony, does that help?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll just make the charitable assumption and assume that, that the proper procedures have been followed, I guess. And I was also curious if do certain denominations of Christianity also use tabernacles, like Anglicanism, Episcopalianism, Lutheranism? I didn't know if it was maybe a tabernacle that was not from a Catholic church. Is that possible? Or
that's possible. That's possible as well, Tony, sure.
Tony, thanks very, very much for that call. I like Tony saying he would give the charitable interpretation. That is really, we forget that that's what we're called to do all the time, every day, to everyone. Give the charitable interpretation.
Yeah, there's even a paragraph in the Catechism of the Catholic Church that mentions that insofar as possible, we should always give a favorable interpretation to another's, his words, his actions. So yeah, I agree with you, Sai.
Even people that are of a different political party from us, though? I mean, I don't know. How serious is Jesus about that?
We don't judge their hearts, We try to be as look as favorably as we can on their intentions, I suppose.
All right, Joseph in Worcester, Mass, listening on 12:30 a.m. You are on with Jim Blackburn. Your question, please.
Yes, sir. I'm calling because I'm wondering, for a Catholic someone who was born and raised Catholic, who has come to doubt because of circumstances that had occurred in their life, and has become agnostic as opposed to atheist. And if you would like, I can draw that distinction for you. How extensively can that person participate as a Catholic in the life of the church, or to what extent can they consider themselves Catholic?
Joseph, if I could ask you about your agnosticism, does it mean you do not know anymore whether you believe in God, or in other words, it could be possible that you do believe in God, you're not sure, or are you you don't know if there is a God or not? You're sure you don't know if there's a God or not?
I would say that I don't believe it anymore.
Okay, so you have a problem with belief.
I don't affirmatively state that there is no God, or it's obvious that there is no God, because to me it's something that's not provable either in the affirmative or the negative, you know?
Fair enough. Jim?
Okay, Joseph, you said one key word. You used one key word in all of this that I think this hinges on, and that word is doubt. When we doubt, that means we're making a choice about our belief, and we're choosing to not believe in a real sense, and that of itself is going too far to be able to say you're still a practicing Catholic. I'm not saying you can't question. I'm not saying you can't have questions about your faith. You can't want to continue to explore it, or even have sometimes what might be described as the dark night of the soul, for example, where you don't have this, you're not on fire with your faith, but you're still choosing to believe, to embrace the faith, to embrace what the church teaches, and to continue to practice the faith. That's different than to enter into doubt and to remain in doubt. When a person gets to that point, it's we really need to talk about it and explain that. And if this is you that we're talking about, Joseph, what I would encourage you to do is try to move away from doubt. You say that you don't believe that we can prove one way or the other. Well, I can tell you many proofs for the existence of God, and I can debunk the proofs that God does not exist, and I can help you with that. I can also show you, scripturally how Paul does this. It tells us about, we see the evidence in the world around us, in creation itself, for the existence of God. I can show you how the most reasonable conclusion to come of all of this is to believe in the existence of God. It may not, in your mind, ever come to a scientific certainty about the existence of God, although it can get to that point. But we don't want to embrace doubt and start to say, because maybe you're not as convinced as you would like to be, that's going to lead you into doubt. You want to turn away from that and turn, if you want to practice the Catholic faith and remain a Catholic as much as possible, you want to try to get around the doubt part and begin exploring. And again, I can help you with this off the air. The call screener can give you my contact information, or you can contact Catholic Answers. Lots of resources are out there to help you with this, to help dispel your doubts, so that you're not in that type of a situation. So, Joseph, I encourage you to look at it that way. Did you have a follow-up question on this, Joseph, or did that get to the heart of the question you were asking?
Well, partially. I although you know, I've arrived at that at the opinion that I hold intellectually. The initial impetus of questioning was caused by great emotional pain in my life, and the seeming silence, utter silence of God, you know, as I looked back across my life, you know, basically throughout my life. The lack of any answer to prayer or anything. That sort of began my questioning.
Okay. Well, let me, before we get to the break here, just mention Blessed John Henry Newman once wrote that 10,000 difficulties does not make one doubt. Maybe you'll find some encouragement in that, and feel free to contact me off the air.
Joseph, hang on the line. We'll see if we can get your information and get information to you.
We're here for you. Give us a call today on Catholic Answers Live.
It might be said that anti-Catholic notions of the Church's history are the original fake news. With all the misinformation being spread, where does one look for the truth? In The Real Story of Catholic History, Professor Steve Weidenkopf gives you the facts on over 50 of the most common misconceptions about Catholic history and shows how to answer them simply and powerfully. Whether it's to answer claims about Catholicism's supposedly pagan origins, old myths about the Inquisition that never seem to go away, or more modern errors that anti-Catholics put forth, The Real Story of Catholic History is an essential resource for every Catholic's bookshelf. Order your copy of The Real Story of Catholic History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
As the legend goes, the Protestant Reformation began when Martin Luther nailed a list of his grievances with the Catholic Church to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany. But do you know the whole story? In Catholic Answers' brand new documentary, The Protestant Revolution, you will hear from top apologists Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin, Carla Broussard, Trent Horn, and Steve Weidenkopf as they expose the errors of Martin Luther and of the other so-called reformers. This DVD will give you a clearer understanding of our Protestant brothers and sisters, and you will be better equipped to engage them about what separates us and about what unites us. Order your copy of The Protestant Revolution today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting shop.catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
'Tis the season for Christmas programming. Join EWTN Radio Christmas Eve and Christmas Day for the 48 Hours of Christmas with Mother Angelica.
You ever notice everybody says around the middle of dinner, "Oh, I'll never eat again." Then they go for the pie. "Oh, I'll never eat again." "Oh, I'll never eat again." And there they are, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and they're still eating, and they'll never eat again.
The 48 Hours of Christmas, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day on EWTN Radio.
Yeah, there it is, and I'm so glad Jim Blackburn was here to share it with us. The funkiest music of the week. Oh no, that's the second funkiest music of the week. The funkiest music is on Thursday, second hour. Still, that's good music. Where'd that music come from? Is that a band too, or who is it? Oh, it's just some really cool music that you found. All right, Nick. Sorry, I got all excited. Now you're making fun of me. That hurts my feeling. 888-318-7884, our number. Our guest, Jim Blackburn, apologist, writer, speaker extraordinaire. You can find him at jimblackburn.org. jimblackburn.org.
That's my blog, which I contribute to just occasionally, but I also really Facebook is where I do most of
your work.
You know,
if
I want to just announce something or make a comment on something, it's usually going to be on Facebook. So you can find me there. It's actually facebook.com/BlackburnJim.
Okay. 888-318-7884 is our number here. Jim, what's the farthest you've ever gone to give a talk? We talk about you're a writer, speaker. What's the farthest you've ever gone to give a talk?
Well, I gave talks on a Catholic Answers cruise to Alaska once.
Oh yeah, right.
I've given talks at in Hawaii and in Oahu. In fact, at Hickam, the military base there, and other places actually on Oahu.
Ever go to the Philippines?
I have not.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
They need to hear Jim Blackburn in the Philippines. So if people go to your website and the Facebook page, they can find out how to get you there as a speaker, right?
Yes, and actually, Catholic.com. Click on the speakers page. I'm listed there as well.
Let's go to Jesse in Burr Ridge, Illinois, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite Radio. Jesse, you are on with Jim Blackburn.
Hello.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
Your question for Jim?
Hi, Jim. I have a question about ancestral healing or family tree healing. And I guess my question is that a Protestant belief? Is that a Catholic belief?
Jesse, are you in the family tree right now? You sound like you possibly are far, far away. Where are you calling? Are you close to the phone?
I'm on my mobile. Yes, I'm on my mobile phone, and I've got an earpiece in.
Oh, okay. All right. So about the ancestral healing, healing the family tree. This is something we hear much more about these days, Jim Blackburn. How does that relate to Catholic faith?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a Catholic thing. This isn't a Catholic belief or a Catholic teaching. This is something that and there are maybe different perspectives that this comes from. Like, for example, there's a Mormon perspective of, baptizing ancestors and such. There's also, we see Old Testament references to how a person's sin will be visited on multiple generations, down through history. And there are, so depending on where it is that a particular ancestral or healing or family tree healing is coming from, you'd have to look at that to address it specifically. But from a Catholic perspective, we recognize that every human being is his soul is created by God at his conception, and that the healing that needs to be done goes all the way back to the sin of Adam and Eve, the original sin, and that healing happens not by addressing the family tree or ancestry, but through Christ's work on the cross, and in particular through baptism. Baptism is what heals our family tree, in a sense. It's what brings us back into that we lost through the fall. When Adam and Eve fell into sin, they lost sanctifying grace in their souls. They lost that supernatural life without which man cannot live in harmony with God forever, for eternity. And they could not pass that on to their ancestors. But Christ came, and St. Paul often refers to him as the new Adam. He is he reversed, in a very real sense, what Adam and Eve did for humanity, or against humanity. And he, as the second Adam, the new Adam, he resisted the temptations when he was tempted by the devil, and he actually even died for our sins so that our sins can be forgiven. And he gave us the sacraments to heal us. And when we're baptized, the main consequence of original sin, that loss of sanctifying grace, is restored to us. If we fall again ourselves, that sanctifying grace can be restored to us through the other sacraments, in particular through confession. And then we can receive an abundance of those graces through the Eucharist and the other sacraments. So that's the Catholic perspective on it. And now this isn't to say that, the sins of my father don't visit upon me and my life and my children's lives. Certainly our actions affect our children and our grandchildren and multiple future generations. But the most important consequence of an ancestral falling is original sin, and that's healed through Christ, through the Church, through the sacraments. Okay, Jesse?
Jesse,
are you still there?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jesse. All right. Let's go to Bob in Springfield, Massachusetts, listening on EWTN. Bob, you're on with Jim Blackburn. Your question, please.
Yes. Happy Advent.
Oh, happy Advent to you, too. Thank you very much, Bob.
Yes. And, hey, I'm not Catholic, but I love the Catholic faith. I feel you guys are the salt of the earth for a lot of things, for the most part. And
thank you.
I love your faith. But I've had some concerns, but I can only talk about one today. In the future, I'll talk about divorce and remarriage and maybe being born again, Holy Spirit filled, but during confirmation. But my concern was I saw in the news about a priest came out as gay today, Sunday, to his congregation, Roman Catholic, and that he had spoken to his bishop, archbishop, before he came out. And after he came out, the archbishop or bishop, supported him and said how he, will support him, and the Catholic faith has to be compassionate, and and then it reminded me of when Pope Francis said, "Who am I to judge?" And without charity to, the Holy Father, I just think that it looks like there's a progressive movement in the church to accept, lifestyle that to me is, not normal. It's sinful. It's an abomination to the Lord.
Bob, you have come to the right guy, though, because Jim literally wrote the book on Catholic teaching on homosexuality. So it was a little difficult to hear, so I'm just going to repeat it in a paraphrase. Jim, a priest came out as gay to his parish, and the bishop supported him and said, "We need to be compassionate about these things." Your take on that, Jim Blackburn?
Okay, and I did hear the caller mention, hark back to Pope Francis' words, "Who am I to judge?" That so many people latch onto today. Thank you, Cy, for mentioning my booklet, 20 Answers on Homosexuality. I address these very topics in that booklet. And one thing we need to keep in mind when we see say a bishop or a priest being compassionate to someone, or a pope being compassionate to someone who is say living a homosexual lifestyle, we have to remember that number one, it is God who judges the souls of men, not men. We do not judge a person's culpability in his sin, and we need to, as much as we can, be Christ-like. Be Christ, if we're clergy, be Christ to people who are in situations like this, well, to all of us. But sometimes that can take different forms. To support someone who is, say, living in a lifestyle that we know to be inconsistent with what is pleasing to God. To support that person often means welcoming that person into our homes, into church and such, but it doesn't mean approving of their behavior. That's not support. That's not welcoming. Doesn't mean or support. Welcoming and support does not mean approving of a person's sins. We never want to cross that line, and I go to great lengths in my book on homosexuality to address this. What is authentic Christian love, for example? Well, as the history of the church shows us, and bishops and popes, and even Pope Benedict XVI, I quote from one of his encyclicals, to love someone is to desire that person's good and to take steps to affect that, what is good for that person. So when we do see a person in sin, our first reaction should not be just to reject that person, and I suspect that's what we're seeing happen in this case. We don't want to be rejecting of that person so as to close them off from a relationship with us and presumably a relationship with Christ and His church. But at the same time, we don't want to be approving of a person's behavior. Don't let it be so shocking to us. Today, we know people fall into sin, In fact, every one of us falls into sin of some kind. And when we see another person who is in a sinful situation and in particular has embraced that sinful situation, knowing that the church teaches that it's sinful, we need to be cautious not to overreact in the sense that we turn them away, we push them away. We want to be supportive and loving towards them by continuing to bring the message of Christ to them and let them know that they're welcome in the church and that Christ still loves them and God loves them. But at the same time, we hope that this will open doors to a person's understanding of the reality of the situation and how to remedy that down the road. I haven't heard a lot of the details of the story that the caller has mentioned. Sai, have you heard a lot on that today?
No, I have not. I didn't know that had happened. But Bob, could I just clarify something with you? When you say the bishop wanted to support this priest, was it your impression that the priest was continuing to live as an actively gay man, or was he just saying that this was his inclination and he was sharing that with his parish? Do you know, Bob?
I think it was his inclination that he was gay, that he had this orientation.
Okay.
And but I think I'm concerned that how does somebody go through seminary school, and not be seen as someone that's not qualified for leadership? I'm all for loving him. If my son killed somebody, I would still love my son, even though he's a murderer, okay? So I would still reach out to the priest in love, but I'd say you can't have this position of leadership because you have to deal with your orientation or your issues and let the Holy Spirit purge you, have the fire of the Holy Spirit burn that away so that you can, and that's where I wanted to go into another thing with a lot of Catholics without charity aren't really born again and Holy Spirit filled. They don't have the power. They're still slaves to sin.
Well, right. They have it if they have the sacraments of baptism and confirmation. They may not make full use of those, the power that they've received in the sacraments. But I want you to respond a little bit to just the end of what Bob said there, but we really have to do a break. So can hang on, Jim Blackburn, all right? And I'll let you respond.
Sure.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Open Forum with Jim Blackburn right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Don't you just love listening to Jim Blackburn? Did you know you can book Jim or any of our other great speakers to speak at your parish or special event? Contact one of our seminar coordinators through the Speakers Bureau section on Catholic.com today to find out more information.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale. With hundreds of great faith-building resources, all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code WINTER at checkout. With great new resources on Scripture, church history, the saints, Bible prophecy, and so much more, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to the shop at Catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet, going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code WINTER at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
The Catholic Answers Minute. I'm Father Vincent Serpa. In Luke 1, while the priest Zechariah entered the sanctuary to burn incense, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, telling him that his barren wife would bear him a son, who would be filled with the Holy Spirit, and would bring many Israelites to the Lord. He questioned how this could be, since he and his wife were advanced in years. Gabriel replied that he would be unable to speak until the day when such was fulfilled, because he had doubted. When Zechariah emerged from the sanctuary, he was unable to speak, and the people realized that he had seen a vision. Shortly thereafter, his wife Elizabeth conceived in her old age. God had a purpose in not giving them children through all those years. How many days had they wondered why their prayers seemed to not have been heard? God always has a plan. It is for us to acknowledge His sovereignty by trusting Him, and thereby showing our love for Him. I'm Father Vincent Serpo for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Tempest Fugit today. Open forum today on Catholic Answers Live. Any question you have about the life, the faith, the history of the Catholic Church, Jim Blackburn, apologist, speaker, and author, is here to take your calls. 888-318-7884, the number. And I say again, a blessed Advent to you and your family. Christmas approaches. Christmas comes apace. Jim, we were talking a little bit before we went to the break with Bob in Massachusetts about a priest who kind of came out as gay. It wasn't clear whether he came out saying he's living a gay lifestyle or whether that's how he just defines his sexuality, but he's still living a celibate life. So did you have any comment on that before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I do, and I thank you for bringing that up, that just having the inclination itself is not a sin. It's an attraction to sin. And if we're honest, we all have an attraction to sin of some sort, and that's just our fallen human nature. That's a consequence of original sin. The Church calls it concupiscence. It's an attraction to sin, and we must always do what we can to resist that. I suspect that though there are cases, and I brought to my mind is the Courage apostolate. That serves to help Catholics who do have an inclination towards homosexuality but want to live the Catholic full sacramental life and resist that temptation. It could be that a priest has, and again, I don't know the specifics of this particular story that the caller mentioned, but it could be that the priest has simply opened up to the fact that this is something he's inclined to, but he does not act out on it, and that can actually could be a good example, especially if he's in an area where, this is there are a lot of say same-sex attracted people at the parish. Maybe he wants to show them an example in his own life. I don't know without getting more details on this, but are there times when we can disclose to other people what our sinful inclinations are? I suppose we can, if it's going to be helpful to others to lead them away from sin. The problem that sometimes arises in this is that when a person discloses his attractions and fails in resisting those temptations, then it can become really a case of scandal, and it can lead others into sin as opposed to helping to lead them away from it, helping them to resist it. And that's what we want to avoid. We don't want to be bad examples in our own lives, and we don't want to bring scandal to others in their lives to lead them into sin somehow. So,
amen to that.
Hope that helps a little bit more as well.
Okay, Bob, thanks very, very much. Let's move to Anonymous in Seattle, Washington, watching on YouTube. Anonymous, thanks for watching. Your question for Jim Blackburn.
Hi, Cy. Hi, Jim. Thank you for taking my call.
Very happy to.
Hello.
Hi.
I was wondering why Jesus didn't make his teaching more explicit, because I feel like if he had explicitly laid out a set of rules for his new church to follow and it wasn't so left up for interpretation, and there wouldn't be so many different Protestant denominations. So I was wondering if you could address that.
Okay. Now, do you have any specific teaching that you're wondering about?
Yeah, like, for example, like the teaching of the Eucharist and how Protestants don't fully recognize the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus.
Okay. Well, Anonymous, here's how, as a Catholic apologist, how I approach this. I would go to the second half of John chapter 6, and I would point out the multiple times, again and again and again, where Jesus says, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life within you. My flesh is real food. My blood is real drink. He goes on and on and on about this. I don't see how he could be more explicit than he was in his teaching there in John chapter 6. At the Last Supper, those who remained with him come to really understand how they're going to eat his flesh and drink his blood, because he breaks the bread and the wine, the cup holds the chalice, in his hands, and he says, "This is my body, and this is the chalice of my blood. Take this and eat this and drink this." And so as they come to understand how they will be able to do this in a real way, and they go on then to teach that to others. We see in Acts of the Apostles, for example, that they meet on the first day of the week, which is Sunday, and they break bread, which is a reference to the Eucharist. St. Paul talks in chapters, in 1 Corinthians chapters 10 and 11, about how the Eucharist is the real body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, and we must discern that before we eat it, or we eat and drink judgment upon ourselves. And he goes on and on about this. Then we can just follow in the first century and beyond, and see how this has continued to be a teaching of the church, and that the church fathers, for example, and the early bishops of the church believed that they believed Christ took him at his word in John chapter 6 and at the Last Supper, and continued to do what Christ sent the apostles out to do. So my point to you, Anonymous, is that and I'm glad you brought up a particular example, because I think when we have a specific example to talk about, I, as a Catholic, can show you how Scripture can be understood, and Jesus' own teaching can be understood in a very explicit way, that he was very explicit in his teaching. This particular one was an easy one, but we can take any of them, any of the teachings that you may have difficulty with, and try to address them in a similar way. And I would encourage you, Anonymous, to go to Catholic.com and click on the Tract section. That's really what that's all about. It takes the teachings of the Catholic Church and the challenges that came about during the time of Protestantism, the Reformation, and addresses those from a Catholic perspective, and shows you how you can understand Scripture in this way, in Jesus' own teaching, in the way the Catholic Church understands it, and how the Church Fathers understood this teaching, and how it's been a constant teaching of the Church down through the ages, and continues to be so today.
Anonymous,
so I hope that will help.
I hope it helps too, and I'm going to say thank you, because I want to get to one more question before we have to go. Abdul in San Francisco, California, watching on YouTube. I'm sorry to ask you to do this, but if you could make your question quick, Jim will be able to get an answer in. Abdul?
Yes, sorry about that. I was watching on YouTube. Sorry about that. It's kind of a general question. I'm a Muslim. I'm just recently kind of interested in Catholicism. I'm reading about, church history and this and that. I was just wondering for a good resource where you can recommend me, where I can learn about Catholic refutations of Islamic objections to the Catholic faith.
Okay, yes. Seeing that we are nearing the end of the time here, let me just immediately refer you to Catholic.com. Click on the shop button, and that will take you to the Catholic Answers store online. And then in the search bar, type in Islam. You'll see lots of resources there. And in particular, to your point, to your questions about Islam, an old favorite is a book titled Answering Islam, and it answers the challenges of Islam from a Christian perspective. In addition, there's a book titled The Bible and the Quran you might want to look at, and then we've talked about our 20 Answers, the Catholic Answers 20 Answers series, and there is a 20 Answers about Islam that you might want to pick up as well, because it addresses the same types of things, and gives you brief but good answers to the common challenges that Catholics face from Islam and in the Muslim community. So I hope that will help.
Sure. And do you have time for just one more question? It's kind of short.
Abdul, I'm so sorry that we don't. Hang on though. After the show's over, we'll continue our conversation. Because the music's playing, that means we got to go. But we do this open forum again on Thursday. Give a call again on Thursday if you like as well. But hang on, we'll chat with you after the show. Jim Blackburn, thanks so much for being our guest this hour.
Thank you, Cy Kellett. Merry Christmas. God bless.
Merry Christmas. Thank you very, very much. I am in the Christmas spirit now. Well, that's it for us. Thanks, Nick, on the sound. Thanks, Kathleen, on the video. Thanks, what's her name? Selena on the phones. Okay, Darren, I see you in there being desperate. Yes, thank you, too, for producing the show. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.